Peru, social movements strike demanding Dina Boluarte's resignation and a constituted process amidst repressive actions that have left at least 28 dead. The president of Chile, Gabriel Boric, announced Chile will open an embassy in Palestine during a Christmas celebration with the Palestinian community in Chile. And in Russia, President Vladimir Putin announced that Russia will achieve the objectives of this special operation in Ukraine despite NATO's interference. From the headquarters of TeleSUR English in Havana, Cuba, this is From the South. I'm your anchor, Gladys Quesada. And now we begin with the news. Social forces continue to rally to call for the resignation of Dina Boluarte and a constitutional process in the midst of the repressive actions that have left at least 28 people dead. In the capital city of Lima, citizens went to the San Martin Square to decline the latest actions taken by the government of the designated president, Dina Boluarte. At the same time, they called for immediate the restitution of Pedro Castillo. Also in the city of Andahuay, the popular forces went on a protest through the main streets of that city. The protesters called on the population to join the street activity, and at the same time they called for regional strikes. Peruvian human rights organizations and social activists denounced the persecutions that the government of Dina Boluarte has undertaken against social leaders in the midst of the political crisis that the country is going through. The social forces warned that the Peruvian intelligence police have begun to carry out actions of identification and detention of social leaders and point out that the rights and liberties of the citizens are being put at risk. The Peruvian Farmers Confederation denounced that its headquarters were raided recently by the police with the objective of arresting the farmers meeting inside. The National Agrarian Confederation pointed out that the persecution of the demonstrators reveals a serious violations of human rights by what they described as the illegitimate government of Dina Boluarte. Now we move on to other topics. On Wednesday, the president of Chile, Gabriel Boric, announced Chile will open an embassy in Palestine during a Christmas celebration with the Palestinian community in Chile. Boric's announcement came against the backdrop of a crisis in relations with Israel. In September, the Chilean president canceled the meeting for the delivery of credentials to the Israeli ambassador in Chile, Gli Artziali, after the murder of a Palestinian teenager at the hands of the Israeli troops. In this line, Boric said that one cannot forget a community that is suffering an illegal occupation and expressed the will of the Chilean state to increase its diplomatic representation in Palestine. In Brazil, one person was seriously injured after an explosion in a restaurant in the northeast of the country. After the event, the fire department reported that the only injured person is a 35-year-old man who was working as a security guard at the establishment. According to preliminary reports, the event occurred in the city of Teresita when the establishment exploded for reasons so far not stated, although unofficial sources reported a strong gas smell in the place. On the other hand, officials stated that the restaurant was completely destroyed by the detonation and another neighborhood and properties were severely damaged. In view of the situation, authorities call on civil engineering professionals to assess the possible risks in the infrastructure. The Venezuelan government denounced a new attack on the economy, which in the last quarters has showed growth figures in spite of the illegal blockade of the United States. In this scenario, commerce in the country is moving due to the massive purchases of the season, but with caution. From Caracas, our correspondent Madeleine Garcia with the details.
It's the cemetery market, one of the most popular in Caracas, the capital. Here, although the river of people does not stop looking for the best bargains, the increase in the parallel dollar, which coexists with the bolivar, the Venezuelan currency, has had an impact on sales.
There is a lack of control. This is a manipulation that is happening. He who has it knows that he is doing it on purpose. And who is the one who suffers? We, the people, the ones who are here day by day.
For some people, this is simply called speculation. Mafias that are behind illegal markets that influence the behavior of the market and trade.
The president takes out decrees, but if we do not comply, we do nothing. Then we ourselves are in charge of stealing from ourselves. And unfortunately, even if the president wants to make it better, we do not collaborate. We are always raising the dollar and we have to work with bolivars because the currency here is the bolivar.
Traders say that they have to battle between the price of the official dollar marked by the BZV, Central Bank of Venezuela, and the illegal market price.
I've seen a drop from 100% to 60% this year. I attribute it to the rise of the dollar because you have to sell to BCB when you are paid in bolivars. But when it's time to buy it, I have to buy and I go out to buy it at the parallel. And when I go to buy, if the BCB has it at 15, I have to buy it at 18. And there I lost my profit.
In the midst of this reality, new enterprises continue to be born, adding to the 86% growth of the commercial sector between 2021 and 2022. Venezuelan men and women who don't give up betting on the country.
It is true that each time one sees the country better, each time one sees it ahead, more organized, truly, God places everything in the hand of each person.
In some way, they contribute and make an effort to maintain the balance that the economy has been experiencing.
There was a point where the economy stabilized, but then it was destabilized again. Crazy. The dollar was separated from the street, the parallel dollar, compared to the BCV. It is difficult because most of the traders are not ruled to charge what the state establishes.
President Nicolas Maduro denounced an attack to the economy and asked to reject the attempt to stop the expansion of its growth in non-oil productive areas, which demand foreign currency for raw materials, spare parts, equipment, and capital goods. But the illegal blockade of the United States limits the entry of such currency in the market.
The criminal dollar is a surviving instrument of the economic war to disrupt the lives of the Venezuelan people. That is why I have called to defend the official dollar marker, because it is also a dollar effectively adapted to the economy, to the market, realistic, objective, and not the criminal dollar that is managed by four mafias from Miami that pretend to damage the peace, tranquility, and Christmas of the people of Venezuela.
Venezuela overcame hyperinflation. Analysis of international organizations such as ECLAC estimate that the Venezuelan economy will have an annual growth rate of 12% and by 2023, 5%. Agreements signed with the U.S. oil company Chevron will be part of the antidote to minimize the consequences of the illegal sanctions that do not allow the entry of foreign currency.
Madeline Garcia, TeleSUR, Caracas, Venezuela.
Let's take a short break now, but first, remember you can follow us on our TikTok account at TeleSUR English, in which you will be able to see news in different formats, news updates and more. Other stories coming up, stay with us. Welcome back to From the South. Colombian authorities continue operations to put out the fire that affected 2 oil storage tanks in the city of Barranquilla, leaving 1 person dead. Within this framework, the fire departments are working on strategies to completely mitigate the flames with the aim of preventing them from spreading to other fuel containers. For his part, the president of Colombia, Gustavo Petro, informed that he is in contact with the authorities of Barranquilla to give them some instructions. At the same time, he expressed his sympathy with the family of the deceased firefighter. While the mayor of Barranquilla, Jaime Peruano, stated that they are monitoring the course of the situation.
We will continue monitoring the situation so that the blaze continues to smolder, but we hope it does not reach other tanks which contain fluids and chemicals with higher combustion potential and volatility than the ones already burning, and that is why we are taking care of them. Such is the strategy we've been following so far.
And the Russian President, Vladimir Putin, announced that his country's armed forces will fulfill the objectives of this special operation in Ukraine in spite of NATO's interference. During a meeting with the Defense Ministry's leadership, the head of the state stressed that the military will accomplish its purposes in order to demilitarize and denazify the Kiev regime to ensure the safety of citizens in all territories of the country. Furthermore, the Russian president recalled that the tragedy in Ukraine was not promoted by Moscow, but by the countries of the West to use the Kiev regime against Russia following the collapse of the Soviet Union. Putin also highlighted the work of the Russian military in the military operation.
I have nothing to be blamed for. I say this with complete responsibility. We have always, and you know my position, we have always considered the Ukrainian people a fraternal people. I still think so. And what is happening now is a tragedy, our common tragedy, but it is not the result of our policy. On the contrary, this is the result of the policy of other countries, third countries, which have always striven for this, towards the disintegration of the Russian world.
The Russian head of state also said that Moscow always intended to have a harmonious relationship with the West, but that the so-called civilized world did not expect anything from Russia. They only wanted and created chaos.
We have always wanted to be part of a so-called civilized world, and after the collapse of the Soviet Union, which we did with our own hands, for some reason it seemed to us that any day soon we would become part of that so-called civilized world, and as it turned out, we were not expected there. Our strategic opponents have had the goal of disintegrating and weakening our country for centuries. There's nothing new here. This country is too big, as they think. It poses a threat to someone, so it needs to be slightly cut apart, split up.
Now we move on to other topics. On Wednesday, medicine companies in China are prioritizing the supply of anti-fever drugs since the relaxation of COVID-19 restrictions earlier this month. According to official media in the central city of Wuhan, where the coronavirus was first discovered, more than 3 million tablets of ibuprofen were being delivered to medical institutions and pharmacies. In order to meet the maximum demands of people in the city, each person can buy up to 6 tablets of anti-fever drugs. China is seeing a surge of cases after the government last week eased some of the world's strictest COVID-19 containment measures. And this Wednesday, World Health Organization Director General Tedros Adhanom Ghebreyesus said in a briefing that the UN need more information about the cases and COVID-19 severity in China, particularly regarding hospital and intensive care unit admissions, to make a comprehensive risk assessment of the situation.
WHO is very concerned over the evolving situation in China, with increasing reports of severe disease. In order to make a comprehensive risk assessment of the situation on the ground, WHO needs more detailed information on disease severity, hospital admissions, and requirements for ICU support. WHO is supporting China to focus its efforts on vaccinating people at the highest risk across the country.
Now we address other topics. In Malaysia, the death toll rose to 26 after a landslide in the city of Bhutan, Kali, in the state of Selangor. According to the authorities, 7 other people are still missing. Officials said that 680 search personnel, police and firefighters are continuing to work on the situation. The causes of the incident, which occurred at an organic farm near the capital Kuala Lumpur, are so far unknown. The incident occurred at a time when the country is in the middle of the monsoon season, which has already forced the displacement of more than 70,000 people. And we have more news coming up after a final short break, so stay with us. Welcome back. In Syria, internally displaced people returning to Damascus-controlled regions denounced the critical humanitarian situation in the U.S.-occupied areas. The deputy head of the Russian Reconciliation Center for Syria, Major General Oleg Yegorov, reported that the center had received information about the disastrous situation in the Kurban refugee camp in southern Syria. The Russian official noted that the camp residents are experiencing shortages of food, essential items, medicine, and fuel. Yegorov said that the Reconciliation Center, in cooperation with the Syrian Arab Red Crescent, had been seeking to open a safe corridor for humanitarian convoy to the Rukban camp for the past 6 months. However, he denounced that the United States Central Command has been responsible for damaging all these initiatives. And the Gambian authorities have foiled a military coup attempt and arrested 4 soldiers plotting to overthrow President Adama Barrow's administration, according to a governmental statement released on Wednesday. The Gambian Armed Forces High Command arrested 4 soldiers linked to the alleged coup after a military operation on Tuesday. Coup attempts are not uncommon in Gambia, a tiny West African country with a population of 2.5 million and almost entirely surrounded by Senegal, which is still reeling from over 2 decades under former President Yahya Jammeh, marked by authoritarianism and alleged abuses. The army is in pursuit of 3 other alleged accomplices, and investigations are ongoing. And the South African President Cyril Ramaphosa vowed to unite the ANC and tackle graft after the ruling party re-elected him for a 2nd term, despite a recent scandal. And in a 5-day conference, around 4,000 delegates chose Ramaphosa after a bruising battle against his former health minister, Zweli Mkhize. The ANC's majority in the National Assembly is under threat, given the last local government elections, where they won less than 50% of the votes, a first in history spanning more than a century. Ramaphosa's victory opens the way for him to win a 2nd term in power if the ANC win the next general elections in 2024.
We have recognized that corruption within the ANC is indeed a dire threat to the continued existence of our organization and to the future of the National Democratic Revolution. We have recognized the great progress that has been made over the last 5 years in tackling corruption within our ranks, within the state, and across society. But we have also acknowledged that we have not done enough to end corruption, to reverse the effects of state capture, and to deal with the corrosive effects of the ANC and institutions across society.
And Germany will be returning 20 historic bronze sculptures to Nigeria as part of efforts to address its dark colonial past. German's Foreign Minister Annalena Baerbock made the announcement on Tuesday. Nigeria's Foreign Affairs Minister Geoffrey Oniyama expressed deep gratitude to Germany as he urged England and other countries in possession of other artifacts to return them on moral grounds. The prized cultural artifacts, known as Benin bronzes, were looted from Nigeria while under colonial rule. The sculptures will be handed over to Nigerian officials in a ceremony at the capital Abuja. Cast in brass and bronze with ancient designs, the sculptures were used in rituals to honor Benin people's ancestors and the rulers. In recent years, Nigerian authorities have intensified efforts to get looted artifacts returned. Germany has pledged to repatriate more than 1,000 cultural artifacts in the coming years.
I think as Germans and Europeans, we should really pause for a moment and reflect on what this actually means. What it means not to have crucial part of your history with you, but to have it taken from you. What would it mean to us to be deprived of our cultural heritage? Not to be able to marvel the Gutenberg Bible in Mainz, to be unable to admire Martin Luther's writings, to stand in front of a sculpture by Käthe Kollwitz in Berlin, or at Goethe's desk in Weimar. To you here in Nigeria, however, this loss has been your reality for your whole life. Today, we are here to return the Benin bronzes to where they belong, to the people of Nigeria.
And we have come to the end of this news brief. But remember, you can find this and many other stories on our website at telesurenglish.net. And also, if you feel so inclined, please join us on social media for all the latest news. We are on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, Telegram, and TikTok. For TeleSUR English, I'm Gladys Quesada. Thank you for watching.